Hi guys, in news that will surprise nobody, Lee Anderson doesn't understand Brexit. Which is quite funny as he was elected in 2019 on the back of Get Brexit Done, which was of course Boris Johnson's winning slogan. The Reform UK MP claimed in this clip that somehow it was the fault of Remainers that Brexit hasn't succeeded. Now he was joined by Vince Cable, the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, and some political commentator who wasn't old enough to vote in 2016, but gave some very strange reasons as to why she would back Leave if the referendum was held today. Have a listen to this.
Brexit can be a success, and it's a great shame that we have failed to do so, and that consequently, as Vince has pointed out, a lot of people are now thinking that Brexit was a bad idea. I think that Brexit was a good idea, but we need to actually start capitalising on it.
I think the problem...
In what way? Explain to an importer or an exporter how they're supposed to capitalise on extra bureaucracy. Explain to the hospitality sector how they're supposed to capitalise on a situation where it's more difficult to access the workers they need. Explain how any of these sectors, farming, explain how farmers are supposed to benefit from Brexit.
The problem is, Sir Vince, a lot of people in that place over there, I think there's 3/4 of the MPs at the time didn't really believe in Brexit. They actually campaigned and voted against Brexit. And presto, when Brexit is finally voted for, they're still doing their best to halt it, to slow it down, to make it not work as it should. And
who are these people you're talking about? You, along with Boris Johnson, won an 80-seat majority on the back of Get Brexit Done. So you can't turn around now and say, well, it's the fault of Remainers. We won an 80-seat majority and it's somebody else's fault that Brexit hasn't succeeded. You replaced Theresa May with Boris Johnson because you didn't believe Theresa May believed enough in Brexit. The chief negotiator, who could have actually got a better deal for Britain, was replaced with David Davis and then replaced with David Frost. And how did that work out? David Frost, a few months after, about 12 months after signing his wonderful oven-ready deal with the European Union, was trashing it. Blaming Theresa May, blaming Remainers, blaming the EU. Never taking any responsibility, although he was sent there to get a good deal for Britain. He came back with a crap deal. But it wasn't his fault, it was somebody else's fault. True Brexit believers were put in charge. And it's the fault of Remainers?
And then all of a sudden they're saying, oh, we've been vindicated. Brexit's been a complete failure. I'll tell you what's been a failure, it's the politicians over there.
Well, most of the moderate Tories I worked in to try and reduce the damage have left the Tory party or were thrown out. So I don't think that's fair.
Okay.
The other key point, of course, is you say it's Brexit in name only. It wasn't. We left the single market, we left the customs union, and business now sees the consequences. In a much smaller economy, relatively higher inflation, we paid the cost.
Chloe, you want to come back on that? You're chomping at the bit here, aren't you?
So she wants to come back on that. She wants to reply to how the economy is smaller and how businesses are struggling because Britain is outside the single market. Okay, let's hear what she had to say to that.
I'm assuming that you were... Did you vote for Brexit? Was you old enough at the time?
I wasn't old enough. I'm a baby.
You're a baby.
I was 16.
If there was a vote today, which way would you vote, knowing what you know now?
I'd definitely still vote for Brexit, of course. I mean, the points you've made about how the politicians have tried to stop Brexit over and over again. I mean, just look how long it took us to leave. It's absolutely absurd. We voted in 2016 and then we had years and years of chaos and arguing. And,
Wait a minute, you're supposed to be presenting arguments in favour of Brexit and you're saying, look at how long it took to leave. That's not an argument in favour of Brexit.
Boris having to prorogue Parliament, we can get into another can of worms there, whether that was legal or not, but the fact that he had to do that to get Brexit across the line and stop the MPs from trying to legislate to stop Brexit, and then we had with Theresa May, MPs trying to legislate to stop a no deal. I mean, it was just absolutely bonkers. And what's the great shame there is that we spent so many years running around like headless chickens trying to get Brexit across the line. Meanwhile, the country was just falling apart, and every other issue in the country, housing, healthcare, etc., was just left to rot.
But You're supposed to be making arguments in favour of Brexit, and you're saying, well, we focus so much on Brexit that we didn't focus on issues like housing or the NHS or others like that. But there was the focus on Brexit because Boris Johnson said he would make get Brexit done. Boris Johnson's response to everything was, get Brexit done. The NHS is struggling, get Brexit done. People can't find a job, get Brexit done. Farmers can't grow crops, get Brexit done. Boris Johnson's response to everything was Brexit. Boris Johnson loved talking about Brexit. You can't turn around now and say it was the Remainers' fault because we were focusing too much on Brexit and not on other issues. If the vote had gone the other way, you would be talking about the other issues. You would not be talking about Brexit today. Why are we talking about Brexit? Because it's an absolute disaster. Because businesses are struggling to import and export. Businesses are struggling to get the staff they need. People have lost their freedom of movement. Universities are now having to find students from outside the European Union to continue to operate. There's the problem of importing all types of food that are not being checked, and this is potentially having a massive impact on farming. It's having an impact, but the impact could even be worse if they're not carrying out checks. Like, point to something positive. Like, if you want to talk about, well, we're cutting regulations for food standards, or we're cutting regulations on environmental protections, or we're cutting worker protections. Okay, those are some sort of benefits for a very small group of people, but Brexit was sold as a benefit for everyone. And this lady hasn't come up with any examples of benefits. She's just talked about how, well, Brexit was a real pain in the behind. And that's her reason. That's the reason she would give to vote for Brexit again. You're talking about how it was a disaster politically, and you're saying, well, yeah, I'd vote for that again. Why? Well, because we weren't focusing on the real issues. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. And Lee Anderson doesn't make a lot of sense either. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.